Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with STN. Glad you made it to the podcast. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing. And we've got a clean bus tip again from our friends at Clean Spray Technologies, laboratory-proven onboard automated infection control system for you guys. We've also got a great guest for you highlighting our Women's History Month. We are talking with Carina Noble, the president of the National School Transportation Association, and Mr. Ryan Gray. He's joining us as well, and he's going to be interviewing Carina.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Karina will sit down. I've known her for several years now, so it's great to have her on the podcast, the reigning president of National School Transportation Association.
And also to note, she is the vice president of marketing at National Express, Durham School Services. So love to hear that interview just a little bit later. But before we dive into that, we are going to talk STN Expo. It's coming up. We got Indianapolis, June 3rd through the 7th. We have our early bird registration happening. Make sure sign up, guys. Great educational program, lots of training, lots of unique experiences lined up. We've got our Transportation Director Summit as well. So if that's something you have time for, you'll get a lot out of that. As well as STN Expo in Reno, Nevada. We still have our super early bird going on. Save $300 on that. That is July 15th through the 20th. Lots of training as well there. Also have our Green Bus Summit, which is going to be a very unique experience for everyone to enjoy. If you're interested in electric school buses, propane, energy, funding, infrastructure, it has everything. It is definitely a hot topic these days for many school districts. I know we've seen some funding come out just recently as well. We'll dive into that headline here in a little bit. So you can go to stnexpo.com, find the right show for you, and learn more. So thanks a lot, guys. Ryan, let's talk headlines, my friend. What do we got going on this month?
A lot. Obviously, we've been talking about all the mask mandates and whatnot. But kind of what snuck out there last week, EPA announced proposed rulemaking for updating its NOx emissions for heavy-duty commercial vehicle engines, and that applies to school buses. So we have a story up on stnonline.com. You could check that out. It's a real expansive read, Tony. It's about 1,374 pages. Going to admit I did not read every page.
Oh, come on, Ryan.
Yeah.
You didn't read all 1,300 pages? Come on.
Yeah, I got about to page 600 before I nodded off. But the school bus is mentioned 36 times or so. And what's really interesting with this is that, the big impetus for updating these NOx emission regulations is the rise of electrification. And EPA points out that school buses is among the sectors that is, quickly advancing those and really counting for a lot of those new units hitting the ground. So, the number 1,000 has been used a lot over the last year. I think the pipeline is kind of a better way to put it, so that buses that are already in use, as well as the ones that are appropriate, if you will, for school districts and bus companies out there. That's, more like 1,800 to 2,000. That's, according to research from World Resources Institute, CalSTART. There's so much money that's coming out in the next month or so for this bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed. Tony, we've talked a lot about it. $5 billion over 5 fiscal years. The rebate program starts next month, EPA says. So we're awaiting the actual rollout of all that. I think actually this week we should be hearing more about that. So stay tuned. But, with the emissions, basically EPA is saying, hey, we need to kind of, adjust things, knowing that, more and more buses are going to be zero emissions. And of course, there's other fuels out there that are going to be achieving zero emissions, renewable propane, renewable diesel. But, essentially what we're looking at, folks, is probably like another, back in 2010 or so, when the EPA was just kind of rolling out a lot of their initial emissions requirements, there was a lot of talk about pre-buying. Well, we might be looking at that again right when, we were seeing inflation numbers or price index, I should say, increased numbers last week, Tony, of, near 8% for the year. I mean, we've talked about the fuel prices, food is more expensive, school buses look like they're going to be more expensive too. So now this is a proposed rulemaking. The comment period goes for the next, couple months. So you have an opportunity to go over to stonline.com, download that 1,374 page document, and you can read through that at your leisure, comment away. I know the OEMs, I have reached out to them, the school bus manufacturers, at least IC Bus, Bluebird, and Thomas, and heard back from a couple of them at least, and they're doing like what we're all doing, Tony. They're trying to understand what this means. But, essentially, again, as we're looking at engine emissions, potentially, some more expensive, at least diesel and gasoline buses in the near future.
Well, Ryan, you know what that equals? Unfunded mandates.
Yep.
Some of the most fun things we always see in the school bus industry. They want us to do more with less. And this is just the same old, right? Like, as if buses weren't going up enough with variable costs from supply chain issues and other, just extraneous things happening in the world. Now we've got other legislation that's going to drive the cost of the school bus up more. And I know it's budget season. A lot of people are probably looking at their next fiscal year budgets. I'm sure the Ukrainian war with Russia, nobody really saw that coming. And here we are. It's just dragging out. And you've got last week Biden saying the oil embargo, which, gas prices, we talked about it last week, $6. I've even seen someone say $7 in California. I mean, we've got a lot of taxes in California, but regardless, that is a ridiculous number. And granted, school districts aren't paying tax on fuel, but regardless, if you're looking at your budget and you think you're budgeting for fuel anywhere near what you were, you probably got it. What do you think, Ryan? 30% more? 40% more?
Well, we surveyed our readers last week, and over 50% said that they're spending $1 more, essentially a gallon now, compared to a year ago. And then like another 26% said between 50 and 99 cents more. So you got 2/3 or 3/4 of our readers saying, they're, spending significant money. So you look at that, even if it's 50 cents, if you're operating 150 buses, how much fuel are you buying, a month or a quarter? These guys are dealing with thousands of gallons of fuel. And we've talked a lot about fuel hedging, locking in prices. Only about 9% of the readers responded and said, hey, the price hasn't changed because we locked in. So, hey, good for them. But, we've heard it's a gamble to lock in. Well, here we're saying it's a gamble if you don't. Also, too, like you were talking about, $5, $6 a gallon, especially out here in Los Angeles area. And again, school districts and school bus companies aren't paying those prices. They're buying in bulk, right? But still, the longer this conflict, this war, draws out. I saw word that, late last week, the latest talks about a ceasefire. Those fell apart again. So this looks like it's going to be going on for a while.
Yeah, it's concerning, and it has larger ramifications, right, worldwide. And ultimately, it really comes back to supply chain too, right? We've seen higher prices, and this only amplifies it even more. How much are people going to be looking at green energy now? We're talking Green Bus Summit in Reno, but the more I talk about it with people, the more it makes a lot more sense. If you guys aren't thinking about alternative energy, nothing like rising costs to really kind of point you in the direction you need to go potentially. And I know the Biden administration is very heavy on, hey, invest in green. And it takes time. It takes funding. Luckily, the school bus industry has got a bit of a windfall with the infrastructure bill and some of this funding to kind of get a little head start on the situation. I know a lot of districts are piloting electric vehicles. Propane's obviously been around, and it's got great awareness, and a lot of people are very passionate about their propane vehicles. So it's always great to see people doing that. But, it's just a drop in the bucket if you think about the volume of vehicles. Even on the low side, 450,000 school buses. And, how many are alternative energy? What do you think, Ryan? 30,000 or less?
Yeah, we know that there's about, somewhere between 22 and 25,000 propane buses out there. We saw a big influx of CNG buses, especially out here in California over the last decade. Now, those are really waning. But yeah, I'd say conservatively 30, 35, probably.
So 8%, maybe 8%, 7% of the total fleet in the United States is alternative energy. And I know OEMs are predicting, 30% or more? So, I mean, that's a really big shift potentially in buying for districts and contractors. And I know I've seen a lot of different larger contractors and OEMs have dedicated staff members now that are like the head of EV or the head of their new electrification. I know First Student has a new head of EV they made an announcement on, as well as they have a brand new president for First Students here. And so those are big headlines. We've got a lot of these big guys that have huge fleets that are making large investments, signaling that this is the way things are going to go into the future. So I'll be very curious how this unfolds in the next 12 months or so, but definitely a lot of momentum that I'm seeing in the market around alternative energy solutions.
Yeah, and at school districts as well. Was talking with some folks this week about the rise at school districts in sustainability managers or energy consultants. I know we had a speaker, Gil Rosas, out at STN Expo in December. He formerly was at Stockton Unified there and really leading the charge and getting all their grant money for their electric buses there. He's kind of like out for hire now, and he's working, looking to work with other districts in the state. Philadelphia, they have a sustainability manager. A lot of especially some of the bigger cities, they are investing as well in a position that not only is looking at school buses, but looking at the total footprint of the district. Buildings, green buildings, that's a big thing. But that's a big signal change as well when you see that school districts are investing in a full-time position for grant writers and folks who really manage the electric or the greenhouse gas reduction footprint.
Yeah, I know there was some imagery of Kamala Harris going around last week about accelerating clean transportation and talking about new measures to kind of address public transit and school buses to reduce emissions. So, we're seeing it from the highest levels of the political spectrum. And, we need the funding to be able to reach that kind of goal. So it'll be very interesting to see where they go and if we see any other legislation kind of come through that's going to support school transportation's goals here to kind of move more rapidly into the space. So it'll be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. Guys, I know you're worried right now about everything happening in school transportation. There's just a lot coming at you, and routing software is one of those things you shouldn't have to worry about, right? You need to call TransFinder. They've got the TransFinder trifecta, Route Finder Plus, Stop Finder, Wayfinder, 3 solutions that work seamlessly together. And there's a lot more too. Inventory management solutions, location intelligence, accurate maps. TransFinder's got it all for you. They have an all-in-one solution, and they're there to help your school transportation department. Period. They are the leader in everything having to do with school transportation, and they have over 3 decades of experience with 3,000 school district clients around North America. TransFinder has seen it all. They've built solutions for their clients, what they need, what they want, and sometimes they never even knew they wanted. You can check them out. Email them, getplus@transfinder.com, or call them at 800-373-3609 to learn more. So, Ryan, I know we saw a headline, a gal named Alyssa Shepard may sound familiar, right? You want to kind of let us know what's going on with her?
Well, if we turn back the clock, 2018, October 30th, I think the entire industry remembers or will remember the 3 students who were killed as they crossed a rural road in Rochester, Indiana to their awaiting school bus, kind of pre-dawn hours, and a pickup truck didn't heed the flashing lights and the stop arm and plowed right into the children. Actually, they were walking across the street with a neighbor boy of theirs. The 9-year-old girl, Olivia Stahl, her 2 6-year-old twin stepbrothers, Xavier and Mason Engel, were killed at the scene, tragically. And their friend, 11-year-old Maverick Lowe, was also struck. He suffered multiple broken bones and underwent 21 surgeries, but, survived. Alyssa Shepard was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Well, she was released last week, about 6 months shy of serving her full term. Evidently, according to news reports, she had completed a Bible study course in prison that reduced her time. She was going to be released, or the earliest she was going to be released, I should say, was going to be in September. But she has now been released to her family and is now on probation. So, it doesn't seem fair that 3 young lives are snuffed out like that in such an egregious, careless way, and only 4 years. But it definitely has led to some positive things, I guess, in terms of there's been a movement afoot, especially there in Indiana, to eliminate or reduce crossing students. So trying to keep the bus stops only on the side of the street where the students live. So I know that there's a lot of, talking about money and whatnot, there's a lot of financial and fiscal elements to that as well. But, we talk about it so much, Tony, you can't put a price on a child's life. So kind of sad news that, that unfortunately that tragedy was kind of revisited over the past week. But so she was released from prison.
Yeah, that danger zone, Ryan. I mean, it's just top priority for safety. I know we had another child fatality a couple weeks ago in Colorado as well, a young girl running after her school bus.
Yeah, and that one was caused by her own bus, and that's one of the rubs here too. It's so much of the attention is put on illegal passers, but just as many students are killed by their own bus or by the school bus. Maybe they're not a student rider, but they're crossing the street. So here at STN, we try to track everything we can, and not just looking at what's happening with transportation, because again, a life is a life, and if it involves student transportation, if student transportation was at fault, what can the industry learn from it so they can get better?
Yeah, Ryan, safety's top of mind, big priority. Also cleaning those school buses is a top priority too. And our next tip here is from Clean Spray Technologies, laboratory proven onboard automated infection control system. Take it away.
At Clean Spray Technologies, our mission is to use science and technology to provide efficient and effective automated methods for mitigating human exposure to harmful pathogens by cleaning the air we breathe and the surfaces we touch. Using our laboratory research and scientific data, Clean Spray scientists ensure only the highest quality disinfectant products. Our laboratory-tested botanical disinfectants and proprietary delivery systems are designed for use in school buses, shuttle buses, and other transit vehicles. The Clean Transit automated infection control system works on an automatic cycle. With customized installation, Clean Transit eliminates human error and ensures thorough coverage throughout the vehicle. With Clean Transit, you can give your riders, drivers, and parents the peace of mind they've always wanted.
All right, guys, thanks for that. You can learn more at cleansprayusa.com. Ryan is coming up talking with Karina Noble from NSTA. Excited to check that out.
Let's welcome to the School Transportation Nation podcast stage, the one and only Karina Noble of National Express. Karina, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, Ryan. Thank you for the invitation. And belated congratulations on episode 100 you had last month. That's really a special milestone. Well done.
Thank you. And speaking of milestones, let's talk about your milestone. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about. Karina, first of all, you've been in the industry for a while now. But before we kind of, get into your history in the industry and with National Express and Durham, you are the sitting president of the National School Transportation Association. So I want to congratulate you. And this has actually been, you've had this post now for 9 or 10 months. And we talked about it last summer when you took the gavel, so to speak, and congratulated you. And we're going to do a Q&A. And then we've been in the middle of COVID and the driver shortage and yada, yada, yada. But hey, better late than never. So I want to congratulate you for that accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, Ryan, there sure has been a lot going on. There hasn't really been time to slow down and catch up, and there hasn't been much travel either. So I am happy to be here speaking with you guys and hope to do it more in the future.
Absolutely. And so, we'll have some more content coming up a little bit later this spring and summer with Karina and with NSTA. So as I mentioned, Karina, you're actually the second woman here as we celebrate International Women's Day the last week, and we're in the Women's Month. You're the second woman to be the president of NSTA. So that, again, that's a great accomplishment, something to celebrate. We're talking a lot about diversity and mentorship. In fact, we have a session that we are planning for Reno on that very topic. Obviously, you are a leader nationwide, across North America, really, in student transportation. Give us your kind of quick elevator pitch, if you will, on the importance of diversity, especially in this day and age where we are right now in 2022.
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure there is a more important topic. All around diversity, right? The diversity in voice and helping make decisions as an industry and as an association, especially within NSTA, is so critical. And not just in male, female, but big contractor, small contractor, contractors who operate in different states. That's when we get to the best ideas and the best solutions. And that's the more diverse voices and the louder the voices, we are able to advocate more strongly for ourselves, which is such an important part of NSTA. And I serve on the board with some other wonderful women, and we continue to increase the percentage of women on the NSTA board. So I'm really excited about that too, not just within my presidency, but in increasing diversity on our board.
So with National Express, and I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that you've been in the industry for a minute now. You're the Senior Vice President of Communications and External Affairs with National Express. But, take our audience through the book of Karina, if you will. How did you get your start in the industry? I know, again, like you've been around for over a decade now. But, introduce yourself, if you will, and your background to the folks at home.
Oh, sure. I really appreciate the way you say I've been here for a minute. That sounds nice. Thank you. I've got some coworkers who say it a different way. Yes, I have been around. I've been in the school bus business for quite a while and came over from transit. I had worked for National Express for many years. National Express operated several different divisions in the United States and spent some time in transportation consulting and then in the transit business. And I really found my home when I moved into the student transportation business. That was with Durham School Services. And so from there, I started in marketing and communications. And really, it was through my role at NSTA when I took on GR co-chair and GR chair that I then came back to National and said, we're missing an opportunity to have external affairs and to be doing some of our own lobbying and ally building at the state level. So that's when I took on external affairs for National Express.
And so GR, that's government relations, right?
It is, yes.
For the folks at home. So I was actually having a conversation with someone last week, someone who used to be in the federal government. That's all I'll say, and I'll protect their identity from there on forward. But this person was really mentioning the importance of not only just that lobbying effort or the government relations effort, is probably a better way to say it, but it's really developing relationships with those folks, especially at the federal level. I mean, state government is state government, government is government, right? But especially at the federal government level, where we're always talking about school bus doesn't get its due. We're always battling for money, and we'll get into the electrification thing in a moment here. But we're staring at the most funding ever for the school bus industry, so that's a big win. But the battle is never over, right? It's yes, we have that kind of the party line that we keep trying to impress upon people about school bus safety, but it's really about, isn't it, the conversation and getting to know the feds and getting them to like pay attention and not just think, okay. And it's one of those, I don't say it that in a bad way, in the sense like they don't care about school bus, but certainly when you're looking at like private industry as well, and then you're also balancing that with public, because what the contractors business makes up about 30% or so of the school bus industry nationwide. So that's got to be a challenge that you at National Express and then at NSTA, you're always looking at how can we influence that conversation better?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, the most fun part of what we do in the government relations world is those relationships and telling our story, which is why it makes so much sense that I oversee communications and external affairs, because external affairs is about telling our story, like you said, to those federal officials. And a lot of the times it's just about educating them who we are, what we do. Some of them don't know that there are private companies like us that do operate school buses for school districts. And it's about 40% now. So it's sharing that with them. It's sharing some of the challenges we face. It's sharing how we can do some things for them perhaps more efficiently. We can help them explain. We can get their message to a large group of operators. And similarly, then we take our voice and we can share it with them. And we represent so many voices that they really are good conversations to have, especially with our legislators and our regulatory agencies. And as you shared with the premonition, I think we're going to talk about electrification next. Mm-hmm. We have been having a lot of conversations about electrification with regulatory agencies and legislators, especially because the EPA has released the Clean School Bus Program. We are waiting on details around it. But yeah, that was really the first substantial form of financial support from the federal government directly to school buses, which is exciting. We've been working a long time to make sure folks understand the importance of school buses, and you guys do a great job of helping us get that message out. So this is exciting for us.
Well, we definitely try. Like I always like to say, we're in the business of telling stories and connecting people. So, but yes, great segue to electrification. So, first of all, everybody and their brother and sister and mother and father and aunts and uncles, they're all talking about, we're electric school buses. So, the $60,000 question for you is, what's National Express and its companies doing with electric school buses?
We are learning a lot. Certainly as a global transport leader, we do operate electric vehicles and have a commitment to introduce more electric vehicles into our fleets to get them as quickly to our customers as we can. Customers want electric vehicles. We're excited about that. But as you know, it's a little tricky. Like I said, there's some learning to do about the vehicles. And it's not just about buying the vehicles. It's about figuring out the infrastructure, making the partnerships with the utilities, planning. And so there's more that goes into it than just being able to get the funds and purchase the buses. And that's what we're working on right now.
Okay. And obviously, you guys have had some experience for a while. I think, up in White Plains, New York, that was kind of one of your first real big projects. Everybody that I talk to about electric buses, aside from the funding, aside from the very big issue of infrastructure and working with utilities and, oh my gosh, construction on your facility and parking lot and, oh my goodness, cold weather. And as I know, as we're recording this, you are in the Chicago area and you guys are getting a little bit of snow, some late winter snow. So obviously that's got to be a big push, and a big part of your R&D, right, is looking at how to best operate electric buses in cold weather.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, you are correct. We are getting some snow in almost mid-March, and that's a little disappointing for us, but it's no surprise. Yeah, that's certainly one of the issues we are looking at is how to operate in cold weather. We operate in 33 states across the U.S., and a good number of them share cold weather and some other conditions that might make it challenging. And that's why we are working with the manufacturers to sort out how this is going to work. And there are some unknowns because electric school buses, like you said, we've operated a few for a number of years. But it is a newer technology, and there is more learning to be done about the batteries and how they will work in cold weather. But we're looking forward to that. Challenges aside and research aside, it's something that we at National Express are very excited to do, and we're looking for ways to get more electric buses quicker.
And with that said, though, you guys, National Express, you are servicing school districts. So really, you provide them what they want. So how much of it comes down to also educating your customers? Because if they are hesitant to go electric, and a lot of people still are, they want other people to kind of, kick the tires and learn the lessons before they jump in. What about that education and that outreach?
Yeah, and that's, like I had said, we are learning, and part of our responsibility to our customers is to be able to educate them and share that information exactly as you said. And a bigger part of it is the funding as well, is trying to help them understand total cost of ownership and operation. And for the customers who are interested in electric buses, some of them don't understand how much more at this point they cost, right? An electric bus can cost 2 to 3 times more than a diesel bus. So it's walking them through all of that as we are learning ourselves. But that's, where we have great customers and great partnerships. In some of the school districts in which we operate, we're learning together.
Mm-hmm. And, part of it too, we're talking about funding. I believe that and we're going to get more details on this, initial rebate program that kicks off this spring. And then I know there's going to be another competitive grant. And of course, we're going to be doing this for the next 5 years. I believe that there is some entree to contractors through the associations, but you're also relying on your school district customers to be the ones that actually apply for the grants, correct? Because that's how you guys are going to get the money to then, invest in these buses and learn these lessons.
Yeah, at this point, that is one of our access points. We do have access through the manufacturers and then also through associations. So yeah, that's why it is so important. Again, the great partnerships we have with our customers, especially those that we've serviced for decades. This is an exciting process, but one, like I said, we're learning together. But yeah, we'll have to work together to sort out, depending on the state, what the local grant opportunities are. And that's going to be important, like I said, because total cost of ownership is significant.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And then also too, hot off the presses last week, speaking of the EPA, they released a proposed rulemaking for kind of updating their GHG phase 2 regulations. And that's, I think it's like 1,374 pages voluminous reading, pretty dry. I would imagine, it's very early, and I've reached out to some of the OEMs, and, they're reviewing it. They've got their engineering teams trying to figure out what it exactly means to school buses. I would imagine National Express, about it. You're probably in the same boat.
Yep, monitoring, letting the experts absorb all that information. I did not read all of those pages, but also monitoring through NSTA as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, one of the big things that we as an industry, as a society, as a world have been dealing with for the last 2 years. I think I saw the other day, 700 some odd days. It's crazy. COVID-19. I know that hit contractors especially hard. Probably feels like, a lot of contractors are still digging out. If, unfortunately, some are no longer around anymore. But National Express, the second largest school bus operator in North America, I'm sure it was difficult, but I'm sure there was a lot of lessons learned from that experience as well.
It was very difficult, and sure hope we are seeing the end of it. We absolutely are an industry, though, that rises to challenges, and we at National Express were no different. As we come out of COVID, we have to continue to be nimble with the changing guidance on masks and social distancing, which, as varies by state and then often even by district. Coming out of COVID, we're facing a severe driver shortage, which I know you guys have covered. And so we are no different than the other operators out there. We're working through those challenges at a time when fuel prices are pushing parents to put more kids on buses. So you've got this perfect storm here of challenges. But again, we are a nimble industry and we're a creative industry, and we're figuring out how to work through that and thrive so that we can get as many kids as we can on buses. We want more kids on yellow buses, and we got to get them to school safely and on time. But I'll tell you, through COVID, the neatest thing, and I know you guys covered a lot of it, so I'm not telling you anything new. We always knew that our school bus drivers, and not just at National Express, across the whole industry, are a passionate group and a committed group that go above and beyond. And watching them through COVID, what they did when some of us were staying home, they were getting out there and they were driving buses and they were bringing food to their students and curriculum and school supplies to their students. And they didn't stop. And that was really special because what it showed the rest of the nation that we all know is that, school buses and school bus drivers really are essential. And that was just so neat to watch and to see and to be a part of. And we owe so many of our drivers great recognition for that.
Absolutely. We just came out of Love the Bus Month last month. And, as a leader at NSTA, I know that it's been crazy and weird with COVID, and it's really kind of put a dampen on a lot of things, especially like the National Love the Bus celebrations that kind of, had been happening for 10 years or so. And then COVID happened, and it was really hard to hold those, right?
Yeah, it was a challenge, and it's frustrating because you do want to be there in person and you want to be able to recognize folks. And so we really are so hopeful that moving forward, we can have the meetings, if you think about our conferences that had to be canceled, we can have our meetings, we can get together again, and we can recognize our drivers and we can be together as a team. Through NSTA, we work in the American School Bus Council. We are finally in 2 weeks having our first in-person meeting since COVID, and that's where we have the opportunity to work with our public counterparts, NASDPs and NAPT, and so it's exciting to be able to be together in person again.
Mm-hmm. And you, of course, you were mentioning fuel. I got to ask you about that. What are you paying at the pump out there in Chicagoland, Karina?
Oh, some timing you have. I got in the car this morning and my light was on, so I can tell you $4.72.
Well, we're about $1 more expensive out here in La La Land, LA area. But, that leads to my next question or point. We actually last week surveyed our readers about what they were paying today for fuel as compared to a year ago. And our producer, Claudia, can probably give me a better number, but I think it was like 50 some odd % said they're paying $1 more per gallon. And obviously, school buses, student transporters, student transportation companies, you're not going to the pump, going to Chevron or, BP or wherever and filling up behind the VW bus. It's so much, wholesale mass deliveries. But that's, obviously got to be a big weight on your all shoulders at National Express. But you have such a large network and supply chain. That's a whole other issue. But, how are you guys navigating this whole fuel situation?
Yeah, we've been asked that question a couple times, and thankfully I have a team that helps sort that, and they, just like our maintenance department, don't want me to be too involved in that. But I can tell you between a lot of conversations with customers, right, about pricing, and a lot of conversations with our drivers about not idling. So it's trying to make sure that we are really making good decisions around fuel. But what I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation was that what we see is more parents wanting kids to be on buses because the parents see how much it costs to be driving their kids back and forth or letting their own kids drive their own cars. So we are seeing a slight uptick in the number of students wanting to get on the buses, which is great, but tough when you match that against a driver shortage.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And, I know that a big kind of push throughout the industry as well, talking about, getting kids to school in other vehicles aside from school buses, is it's all the, lack of a better term, the ride sharing kind of model, the TNCs, there's other alternative modes. The contractors more and more are getting involved in some of that business as well, aren't they? What's National Express looking at doing in terms of other models? Because like I set up at the top, we kind of talked the party line, and part of that is, school bus is the safest way to get kids to and from. But as you and I and everyone out there knows, oftentimes the school bus is just not efficient. It's not available for some students.
Right. There tend to be a handful of routes where it doesn't make sense to put only a handful of kids on a large school bus. And so we can work with the districts to find solutions for those. And it might be vans. But like you said, the yellow school bus is the safest form of transportation and takes the most cars off the road. So of course you want to encourage yellow student transportation. But in those cases where you've got the students who live too far out or you have to transfer to a school and it's just one student, then yes, we are looking at some vans for that service. And, as you may also know, then the van does not require the CDL, so it's a different pool of drivers that you need. So it is a solution. But again, through NSTA, and at National Express, yellow school buses are the safest, and we want to keep kids on yellow buses.
Well, it's amazing here. I mean, we're knocking on the door here of being about a quarter of the way through 2022. So excuse me if it sounds kind of more like a New Year's resolution type question, but as you look forward, as National Express looks forward throughout the rest of this year, and already looking ahead to 2023, technology. Are there any new bells and whistles out there that National Express is looking or willing to talk about at this point, or maybe even trends that you see the industry going toward?
That's a great question, because nobody wants to just buy technology for technology's sake. Our strategy at National Express revolves around being the safest and the most reliable with the most highly satisfied customers. And to do that, we have to rely on technology. Our whole strategy is digitally enabled, and we have some fantastic systems and tools that are going to get us there. The neatest part about my job is I don't get to select the technology or train on the technology. I get to use some of it behind the scenes. But prior to COVID, I was rolling out a program where we were inviting elected officials to our local customer service centers. They would get to come to the bus yard and they would get to meet our drivers and learn about what it was, the service we provided to their students. And what was so cool about all of these visits, it's every elected official. It was almost as if they had a script. They all said, I can't believe how much technology goes into running a school bus operations, which is such a compliment for us, because over the decades, if you think about it, the outside of a school bus hasn't changed too much. It looks the same to these elected officials as it did when they were riding the bus when they were younger. But what they don't realize is how upgraded the systems are that now help route the buses, manage the buses where they are, can monitor the idling on the buses, cameras on the buses. And so that when I speak about technology, it brings a smile to my face, because it always is an aha moment for anybody who doesn't know about the yellow school bus industry as we get to show them behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. So yes, we've got some great technologies, and I'd have to probably dig deeper and share more with you. And I would also feel badly if I left one of our vendors out. So rather than offend anybody, I'm not going to name names, but our technology partners are pretty great.
Well, we'll be waiting with bated breath for when the day comes that you do roll out some of that news, and we'll certainly be happy to get back in touch and talk about it and write about it and share that good word. So, Karina, thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day and week to come speak with us and share more about yourself and National Express. And once again, congratulations, President NSTA. You're going to be heading into year 2, correct, this summer of your term?
This summer, yes, we'll head into year 2, and we will be back in D.C. this spring, which we are really excited about. We haven't been able to be in D.C. for a couple years, so a lot of really exciting things coming up for NSTA. And thanks again for the invitation. I really appreciate the opportunity to one, talk to you. We haven't talked in a while, but also to talk about NSTA a little bit and National Express, 2 organizations I'm really proud to be a part of.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. And, it's nice to talk to you too. I send you emails. I know you have people that take care of a lot of the day-to-day media requests and whatnot, but I send emails, but it's usually like, Karina, can you help me with blah, 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 blah. And, so it's good to actually just kind of have a conversation and catch up.
Yeah. Always happy to help.
Really appreciate it, Karina. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, special thanks to Karina for coming on. Ryan, appreciate you. Thanks a lot to our sponsors, TransFinder and Clean Spray. Couldn't do it without you guys. Hey, everybody, make sure you visit stnonline.com for all the coverage relevant to you, everything having to do with your job in the school transportation industry. Again, stnonline.com for that. Also, be sure and come to the STN Expo. There is so much good training, so much hands-on. I know you've been kind of stuck in the office or at home for so long. Now's the time to get out. Come out to the shows, see your peers, see the latest technology. Look at what's available to you in green technology at our Green Bus Summit. Take a look at our safety technologies, everything having to do with legal passing. There's so much good stuff that can help your transportation department save lives, become more efficient, optimize. We can't wait for you to just share with all your friends too. So be sure and get this podcast out to everybody. Don't forget stnexpo.com for all the details on the conferences. You can download the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure you check it out too on your iPhone or Android device. Go search podcasts, find School Transportation Nation, add it to your phone. Be sure we're there every week. We come out every Tuesday, Wednesday. So keep an eye out for the podcast. Nation, we appreciate you. We love you. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.